The world is going crazy. There are so many advances, so much is moving so quickly, and a lot of us are afraid about our jobs. Just this week, the new models released by some of the big AI companies are blowing people's minds. And so today we're going to discuss what all of this technological advancement means for our jobs. What jobs are great for AI to take over, and which jobs do we humans need to hold on to? That and a lot more with some good friends tonight on The Rundown. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon. David Paskin here, and this is The Rundown, and I'm so happy to have some of my good friends with me again. As always, I have Tamara here. How are you, Tamara?
Hello. I am good. How are you?
Good. You know that I have been watching the beginnings of shows when they do this part, trying to figure out what is the right question to ask someone when you just need that quick, like you don't want to have a whole conversation like I'm doing right now, right? You just want the quick hello. What's the right question? No one, it usually comes down to weather, which is so lame.
It's cold and overcast here in Southern California.
Well, there you go. It's overcast. And Tony, how is it in Atlanta?
It's great in Atlanta. We are having some very warm days. They say that we're going to get a couple of cold days soon, but we're very happy with the weather.
Good. And last night, by the way, if you didn't check it out, there was a fantastic episode of Conversation with Tony Mobley with Liberty White. It was really, really good on women in AI. Just fantastic. Really good conversation. So thank you for that. And our good friend Lois is here. Hi, Lois.
Hello. I'm in California, and well, it's still sunny out. It's not dark yet, so it's cool.
I just heard this week that they were talking about the whole daylight savings time and how maybe we should.
That discussion that goes on every time that we switch.
And no one ever does anything about it.
Well, I think that things are too busy right now to consider it. So maybe next year.
Well, I don't know. Anything's possible in the environment that we're in right now. But it's safe up in Canada, and that's where our good friend Dave is calling in from. How you doing,
Yes, Dave? Yes. Well, I'm doing pretty good. I usually use the question, "What did you have for breakfast?"
What did you have for breakfast?
Most people can tell you that. Yeah. And I usually did that to warm up.
Well, no, I'm asking now. I want to know, Dave. What did you have?
What I
had
for breakfast?
Yes,
bagels. Bagels.
Okay, now see that you're just a jerk. It's Passover and I can eat bagels. Like that was just mean.
Yeah.
What did I have? I had a piece of cardboard with butter on it. Thank you.
Oh, really?
That's what I had.
Gee.
Piece of
Well, you're sacrificing your life for me. Yes.
It's like Lent, except we have to give up everything good.
Yes.
Bill, how are you, sir?
I am absolutely fine. It is so nice to be back with you all again. I miss it every time I miss this.
I love having you. I really do, Bill. I'm so glad that you're with us. We have a whole bunch to get to today, but let's jump right in. Let's start with some news. So this first story really jumped out at me. We spend so much time, rightfully so, I think, worrying about the impact that technology may or will have on our children and on us. Well, there's a new research out, and this is huge. 411,000 adults age 50 and over reveals that engaging with digital devices may actually help protect against cognitive decline and dementia. So this is an analysis of 57 studies, showed technology users had lower odds of cognitive impairment and reduced rates of decline over time. These positive relationships were observed across computer, smartphone, and internet use. And so it talked about brain protection remains strong in both snapshot and multi-year studies. Protective effect was comparable to or stronger than established factors such as physical activity and education. Effects persisted even when controlling for socioeconomic factors, education and health conditions, and positive effects were found in both the 50 to 65 age group and those older than 65. Now, I don't want any of us to reveal ages here. I'll just say that a few of us are in that 50 to 65 range, and it's possible that one or more of us is above that 65 age range. So I'm curious. Now, obviously, we all love our technology. So this isn't, none of us have to be convinced. But what's your take on this? Are you surprised by this? Go ahead, Lois. Oh, you're muted again. See, you need that button. Yeah.
I have the button. I was just
You
trying
keep
to be
forgetting the
polite.
button. That's what's wrong here.
So I want to know more about the study, because just hearing what you said, my thought was, okay, so the people who are using the technology already have really active brains. So does it this first or is this first? So then my question comes, okay, now did they do a study where they took a bunch of people and they gave half of them technology and they took it away from the other half? Is that how they figured out that the technology made a difference? Or is it just the people using technology did better?
Right.
Oh, see, that's such a great question, but that's not what I got out of the study. I love this study so much because it's like all of the studies that reinforce my use of coffee is good for me. I don't care how they did the study. I know I should, but I just love the fact that my brain is healthy and coffee is in my life and computers are in my life.
So
I just hope, please, please, please make a difference. We unfortunately had the circumstance where my wife's mother, who was living with us at the time, had a descent over the course of years. And it is one of the most disruptive and terrible things to deal with that you will ever come across. And so if they're making even tiny bits of progress in terms of diagnosis or treatment, God bless you and keep working on it, because the people who get stuck in this circumstance, it's very, very difficult.
yeah,
I would caution people not to call it a study because it's a meta-analysis of many, 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 many studies and a consensus about whether all the studies agree or disagree. And they've had significant consensus. So it's reasonably important because most of the studies done were looking for other factors, but this one added technology to it and found that many of the same things that David described are actually consistent and can be relied on. But if you call it a study, it's not. It's a meta-analysis.
it is a
of all the
meta-analysis. And by the
studies.
way, I'm not sure if that was just me, but you got real quiet, Dave. Was that just me, or was that everyone? No, it's just
No,
me.
just
I,
It was just
I'm
me.
here.
You
Okay,
sounded pretty
fine.
consistent to me.
It was just me.
you
Sorry, my bad.
quiet? I don't get it. How does that happen?
No, it's just me. You know what it is?
Anyway,
I'm in that
no,
50
but I
to
think,
65
being
group.
70 myself, I worry about whether I have cognitive decline and whether I'll notice if I do. And my wife assures me she will let me know. But
So,
at the
so
same
Dave,
time,
you're, by the way, thank you for the correction. You're right that this is an analysis. This itself isn't a study. I did just link for everyone, both on YouTube and here, the the link to the actual meta-analysis. So basically, here's the big picture. The digital dementia hypothesis predicts that a lifetime
That's
of
the one, yes.
technology exposure worsens cognitive abilities. An alternative hypothesis is that such exposure led to technological reserve, wherein digital technologies promote behaviors that preserve cognition. Interesting. It's not the technology that is preserving, it's the technology that is allowing people to engage in other activities that, and we've talked about that a lot. We tested these hypotheses in a meta-analysis and systematic review of studies published in Medline, PsycInfo, CINAHL, Science Direct, Scopus, Cochrane Library, ProQuest, and Web of Science.
So it sounds like there was some rigor to the study. I remember
136
reading
papers that met inclusion criteria. Yeah, I mean, it goes on and on. There's a lot of stuff here that I don't understand because it's.
Well, I'd like to mention that in a discussion between Aristotle and Phaedrus, they talked about how people will lose memory because they're learning the alphabet. And books will be where
this
we
goes
put our
back a way.
minds. Yeah, that we will actually externalize our thinking to other things like books, and we will not remember anymore. And
Well, isn't that the fear of AI, right? Is that we don't need to know anything anymore because
Ever technology change.
right.
Yeah. But
I'm not sure if it's
IMDb
directly related,
is the
but
scourge of everybody because they can't remember an actor's name anymore. They go associate it anymore.
How about your
They just
child's
rely
phone
on
number?
IMDb to find
I have no idea what
my
my
own
kid's phone numbers
I've never
are.
used my own phone number, and I have to think about it. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, Bill. Go ahead. You wanted to jump in.
Well, I just wanted to say that I remember reading an anecdotal study, at least, about when iPads started getting out, particularly young children who had learning disabilities and or were on the autism spectrum or something like that. It turned out that some of those touch interfaces were actually very successful in giving them a focus and the ability to do more. So I can see technology having an effect on these kinds of processes, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if there's something behind that.
I mean, I'm thinking just about the games that folks can play, the mind games, the brain games. You know, Tony and Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, Bill opened the door for me in terms of talking about iPads and children, particularly with autism. And so I've shared before that I was a high school autism teacher, and we had we were one school in the district that had a lot of different technology devices and infrastructure in our classroom, and the iPad was primarily one of them. And so we had students who were nonverbal. We had students that had various different levels of autism, and we recognized very clearly that the iPad made a tremendous amount of difference in terms of the quality of expression and communication for those students. And we had enough iPads that all of the students had access, and so it was really a positive experience. And not only that, and I have to make this disclaimer that I am an Apple fanboy, but I am an Apple fanboy from the standpoint that the accessibilities apps that are on the iPad years and years ago were so powerful and so ahead of the time in terms of providing access for those students or adults even that had some issues. And so and I just wanted to make the point that I'm a believer in the study from the standpoint that in February I turned 67. I don't mind telling people that. I am actually excited about the fact that I do as well as I do in terms of everything that I've been through, and and I am a bona fide nerd, and that I think that reaching out and trying out different technologies and all of that makes me more aware, and my desire to learn is just it's unquenchable. And so I'm excited about that.
I love it. Love it. Dave, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to mention that cognition is different than memory, and a lot of people think memory loss is dementia, and it isn't. It's when you can't calculate or figure out where you are or know who you're talking to, that sort of stuff. So just so you guys know, it's about dementia and not memory. So
Yeah. Thank you. Lois, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I know that this must be true because every time I play a game, the ads come on and it's somebody going, and the seniors need to do this. This was specially designed for seniors to keep your brains act. I mean, the ads are all over the place. So hey, must be true, right?
So where did the whole, I guess the technology brain rot idea really was more about kids than it was about
we do
seniors
that all the
and
time.
adults,
Any
right?
new media, comic books, video games. I
Right.
mean, every time we sort of accelerate that process, we get fearful for the children. Yeah.
Yeah.
When in fact, maybe it's us.
Yeah,
We should be fearful for us because they understand it and we don't.
that's a good point.
Well, it could be anything. I mean, I remember when kids used to go and watch TV instead of being outdoors playing at night,
All right. And
Yeah.
look what
And I
happened to
can
us.
see people being concerned about the fact that a lot of video gaming is pretty violent and based around conflict and things like that. Although I have to admit, I think my son learned to read in part because of Animal Crossing. I think that was the real trigger for him going, I desperately need to know what the next thing is, so I better learn to read this. And I saw a positive effect on him
Yeah,
from
my
that.
son learned Japanese the same way. He was getting bootleg copies of a Japanese game, and then he had to learn to read the menus in Japanese.
go.
And now he works in Japan building aircraft that's going to take people into space.
So I think we
Speaking
can
of
all agree
which-
this is a
Speaking of
good
space, what a
thing.
segue.
Speaking of
Segue.
which, so for 11 minutes,
I'm going to
women-
kind of recuse myself from this part of the conversation.
Well,
because I am
probably all the
actually-
men should, but I'll just set the stage. So, for 11 minutes this week, an all-female rocket crew went up on the Blue Origin. They crossed the barrier that meant that they made it into space. It was led by Lauren Sanchez, an author and the fiance of Amazon's Jeff Bezos. It included a pop star, a journalist, a civil rights activist, a rocket scientist, a filmmaker, including Katy Perry. Here's the thing.
Yay, hooray. It's wonderful.
It is wonderful. It is wonderful. Good for them. I'm sure, I hope it was, and I'm sure that it was a meaningful, a powerful experience for them. There are a couple things that I'm bothered by this. Number one is the way we have framed it, the way we've been talking about it, but the way some people have been talking about it, and number two is the economics of it. If there were if there was real learning going on, if there was real science going on here, then I probably wouldn't have minded all the money that was pissed away on this. Sorry. But this was a show. This was a bunch of rich people going up and doing a show. And the way it's been framed, unfortunately, by some, is that these women are now space travelers, that they are now astronauts. And I don't really care what they call themselves, but it bothers me on behalf of women who really are astronauts, like the one that, thank God, was just able to come back after 6 months or 9 months on the International Space Station. It bothers me that we're calling wonderful people who took a 11-minute joyride, that we're putting them on the same pedestals we put people who have studied their entire lives to be astronauts.
I don't think that most people are doing that. I mean, I'm sure there are some, but 52 people have gone up in the Bezos program now, and they've been up there. They didn't go up by studying for 20 years and becoming an astronaut, like going through NASA, but they are space travelers. They have been to space, and that's a wonderful thing. So I think we should just say good for them, and then let's move on.
So
I think the
let me
problem
can I
isn't-
just show one
go ahead.
thing, Tamara? Sorry.
Yeah.
So this is what they did. Okay. Wait, why is that not blowing up? It's supposed to blow up. Blow up.
The last one didn't either.
They got past the Karman
All right.
line,
Well,
right?
in any
Is that
case,
the technical?
here's what they did.
Drag the box.
Okay. I don't know why this is a weird.
Drag
I
your
know
window
why.
and
Wait,
make it
I
bigger.
know why. It keeps happening to me. There we go. So here's what they did. Right? They took off from over here. They went up, up, up. They separated, and then they fell down. Like, I mean, there wasn't. When they reached the top, they didn't even get propulsed anywhere. They just fell.
David, so what? I think you're making a big deal out of this when it doesn't need to be a big deal.
I
So they
think-
went up, they had a ride, it's all great. Now let's move
Tamra,
on.
help me
So
out here.
this is the thing. I agree with you, Lois. It is a cool thing that they went up and they're space travelers, and that is amazing. And I'm excited for them. If I had the money, I would potentially do it too. The problem isn't that. The problem is that they themselves and media and press and everyone else is kind of pushing this as though this was a significant step for women and it is an aspirational thing for women. It's not aspirational. If you don't have $1 million, it's not available to you. But also, it's not going to do anything to get more female scientists and people who are astronauts into the space program. If this were a space program that was like, hey, this is an all-female shuttle crew, that would be significant in a way that could be aspirational. This is just, it is exactly that. It's a joyride. Congratulations. I love that for you. But stop pretending like it is more than it is.
For some reason, this made me think of the term director of photography. And this is a little bit on David's side of things, although I can see both sides of things. Once upon a time, that term of art in the making of motion pictures really meant something pretty significant. If you were a director of photography, you were way above just being a camera operator, way above being even significant at that. It said that you had spent most of your career becoming skilled at lighting, at operation, at all of the aesthetics, and you were expected to be at a very, very high level of accomplishment in that field. Then you got little digital cameras coming out, and suddenly I kept seeing Bob's the director of photography, and you'd find out, well, why is Bob the director of photography? Well, it's because he owns the camera. All he had to do was send $6,000 to Blackmagic, and he's now a director of photography. And you go, well, okay, this isn't where it was, but we see that now over and over again in terms of the demonization of expertise as a thing. Now you can become a fill in the blank by just saying you are. All of those things.
You know what?
Clean show.
That's actually a fantastic explanation and analogy. It's wonderful. And I think that will also be relevant to our discussion later around AI and jobs. And what does expertise mean in this new world that we live in? But that was a beautiful analogy to the director of photography. Really, really nice. And look, again, I think it's the money that bothers me. But there was an interview today with an astrophysicist over at NASA about the signs of life, that they found with the James Webb Telescope, which, by the way, it's unbelievable. It's incredible what they didn't see anything. It's just unbelievable what they did and how it all works. But whatever. But one of the questions he was asked was, are you concerned about NASA funding? And he said, yeah, I'm really concerned. And the truth is that NASA funding is a nothing. It's it's like what we give PBS. It's the things that we're talking about cutting are almost meaningless.
Couch cushion money, yes. Yeah.
They're rounding errors.
Right, exactly,
Right.
rounding errors. But and so I think that in light of that concern, this maybe grew a little bit in my concern that we have real concerns about real astronauts and real space travel and real science that we need to protect and we need to invest in. And instead, we just blew $20 million on a joyride for 8 wonderful,
Well,
deserving
again,
women.
it's a vacation, and I'm totally cool if people spend their own money the way that they want to spend it.
That's
But
true.
it's super tone deaf in this economy where people are worried about their house to hear
Yeah,
about people who
that's
spent
true.
11, the more than 10 times their salary on just 11 minutes. It just feels tone deaf. If they came back and said, I got to take the greatest vacation ever and it was super cool, that we'd be like, that's amazing. But
Right.
that's not how that's not how they talked about it. And then when you talk about it that way, then you're like, you spent a lot of money, and that money could have like solved hunger.
I had to change the tech therapy because yesterday I went to the cardiologist.
Help?
Now we're in for it now.
Yeah. Okay. Backstory. I'm fine. I'm fine. I have had very high blood pressure for the past, I don't know, 5 or 6 months, like 150s, 160s, like borderline stroke levels. And,
Okay.
but I don't have any pain. My heart, everything else is fine. So I went to my primary care. She put me on some meds and it wasn't getting better. And my wife at that point took over and said, you're going to the cardiologist. So yesterday I went to the cardiologist, first time ever. They were lovely. And I walk in, I'm sitting in the room and the doctor walks in. I think she was actually an NP, but she walks in and she sits at the computer and she says, I'd like to ask your permission. We're using a new tool. Today's the first day. You'll be the 4th person I'm using it on. I'm going to press this little button. She's showing me on the computer. I'm going to press this little button. It's going to listen to our entire conversation and it's going to take all the notes for me. I said, yes. And I said, except you have to show me how this is working. So she pressed her little button and then we just had our appointment. And I must have been in there for 30, 40 minutes or so. Half of the time was talking about this AI that she was using. But, and so for example, I brought my blood work, the results of that. And she read it out loud so that the computer would pick it up. And then she taught, and she, just as she normally would, she told me, okay, so we're going to do this, so we're going to do this, and you're going to take this, and da, da, da. And then when she was done, she pressed the little stop button, and all of her notes were complete. The prescriptions were ready to be called in to the thing. The diagnosis, everything was there. Nothing can be submitted without her, or the doctor rather, looking it over. But what I said to her afterward is that this is the first doctor's visit where I feel like you were with me the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
You were looking at me, you were present with me, you weren't having to type things into the computer. It was fantastic. I don't really need therapy for this. I just wanted to share it with you. Sometimes therapy, you can talk about
Right.
good things, right? It was, but I mean, it was interesting because she said some patients have said no. Some patients still have, I guess, a fear that it's an infringement on their privacy or something. I don't really care about my privacy, but it was wonderful. It was.
You were like
My
the dream
doctor-
patient.
Say
My
again.
doctor
didn't even
always
know.
loves to have me visit because we talk. We don't have a sort of back and forth diagnostic. I come in regularly and we just talk, and I talk about what's going on in the world, and he complains about his last vacation, and we get to that, but we also have the details, and when the details are over, we can chat. And he loves having me over.
And the
'cause he
AI,
gets a
by the
break.
way, it leaves out anything that isn't pertinent. That's the magic of this AI. This isn't just a transcription. This is a little bit, I guess, like what Zoom and some of the others do, is that it in this case, and I asked her this, it actually doesn't keep a full transcription. It doesn't even, I think, record a full, well, maybe it does, but no one has access to a full
It
transcription.
listens, but it decides how much is relevant.
Right. It just spits back out what I imagine is the relevant information, all organized by, this, that, and the other thing, and then next steps and follow up and all that other stuff.
Auto synopsis. It just does a synopsis of what you were
I
talking
guess so.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
But
we
it's
have-
trained as a model to
I
be
assume so,
specific
yeah.
to that doctor, right? Or to that type of medicine.
I
Well, it
assume
probably
so.
has to follow HIPAA or they wouldn't allow them to do it. So
Right.
they must have some built-in firewall between that AI doing that and the wider world. I don't think they're sending your medical discussion up to
No.
ChatGPT and then coming back down.
Right. No, I agree.
So
Lois, go ahead.
for a long time, we have had the kind of assistance on the computer where you could get the transcription and that sort of thing. I think the important part here is that no matter what time of the discussion you say something, if you're talking about something and then you mention this little thing over here and then you're talking about more things, that the AI will keep track of everything you said. And if there were 3 places where you said something about this little thing, well, it will put them together. It will collect up what it needs for this. So it has to have, in my opinion, a format in the background, a thing that says, if it's talking about breathing, then this is the section, or this is the section about the heart, or whatever it is, so that the structure and the organization is already there, and it can fill in from what the two of you say. It can fill in the pieces where needed.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. One interesting point, Lois, by the way, is that she told me that a frustration point is that the hospital where I guess this office is associated, they don't use this system. And so none of these notes are transferable over to
Really?
them, which is that's a huge problem in this world. Joe Callie is asking. By the way, Joe Callie says, I've written Space Mountain and Pirates of the Caribbean, so am I a pirate? Back to the
Yes,
space.
absolutely.
So I think so. But
We
Joe
deem you a
Callie,
He's a
pirate.
pirate.
Joe Callie also asks, would you have trusted the results, including the RX, the prescription, if there was no human contact? One of the questions I asked her, the
That's a
doctor,
good one.
was, can this take action? Is it, I didn't use the word agentic, but can it take action? You know, if you said out loud, doctor, I'm going to put you on 25 milligrams of whatever it was, I don't remember, and the system knows my Walgreens, it has that in there, can it call that in? And the answer is no, that it's not doing that yet. If it had, would I have trusted it? I mean, I would have, but I'm kind of an idiot.
David would have.
Yeah, I mean,
This brings
I
up
don't know, would you?
so many important things to talk about, because if I'm sitting there with my doctor and say, I've been feeling weird and I'm really worried about my heart. I'm kind of feeling like, gosh, I don't think anything's wrong, but is there possible I could have a heart problem? And then the AI sees heart problem and it wants to put that in the notes.
Right.
So the question is, I'm happy for you to have that doctor. I'm even happy for when you refer me to another doctor, for that doctor to have those notes with heart problem in there. What I am not happy about is the potential that an insurance company
That's exactly it.
Right.
sneak
exactly
in and get that thing,
Call.
and suddenly my rates go up by 30% because I mentioned heart problem.
So do
in my
insurance
doctor's office.
companies
Ins-
have access to our medical records?
HIPAA was supposed to limit that. That was the whole point for that thing. But we were seeing so much breakdown in regulation. Get rid of regulations, get rid of regulations. And you just worry about the fact that if they get rid of a regulation like that, that's designed entirely to protect you from abuse in those kind of weird cases, then who's being held accountable for not following those 2 words in your medical record and screwing with your rates?
Well, and you bring up a really good point, because one of the things about the way that insurance billing works right now is if you go to your doctor for one thing and you discuss something else, then that doctor's office can bill you a specialist fee for that something else. So your doctor will be like, hey, Bill, I totally think that maybe we should set an appointment for this so that you're not billed for that at that appointment on top of your other just regular checkup. But if that becomes your AI transcript and ends up going to billing, and billing goes through and picks up all the things you talked about, and then they bill everything for that appointment.
Oh,
That's the
interesting.
nature of how insurance works right now.
But
I
so
really
it's
feel
not
bad
just
for all of
insurance.
you.
Right.
It's even your doctor's billing office.
It's your doctor's billing
Oh,
office,
interesting.
because like,
Billing
if
coders, they're always
Yeah.
looking for billing coders, and one mistake, and
So
suddenly
I will
you have a
say-
history of this.
So I will say that she told me that the one thing she's not able to put in are the diagnoses. And that's because of those billing codes.
Yeah.
Because each diagnosis has a code that goes with it. And so those codes are not in the AI itself.
Right.
And you said this was not a doctor. She was a stand-in for your doctor. So that means that there will be another human being reading the notes
Yes.
and making some decisions.
Yes,
At this
absolutely.
point,
Dave, go
yes.
ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I just want to say how sorry I feel for all of you. Because
Us
my
too,
stuff
Dave.
is
You're in
automatically shared. The insurance companies are not allowed to have it except through the government issuing the numbers themselves, and they do it in aggregate. They don't do it on an individual. There's no person writing down code numbers for things because it's a pretty simple process. The doctor knows what applies and what doesn't, and he gets billed, not me. So he gets paid for talking to me, whether or not we change the subject or talk about tennis. And his time is his own, and he can decide how many people he wants to see and not. But I feel real bad for you guys talking about all this interference with you getting what you need. And if AI pushes all these people out of the way, I'm all for it. If it does the numbering thing for the hospitals, if it does the billing, rationalizations, then you're in a better shape. But you and the rest of the world are in a big trouble. Like, I'm sorry, the rest of the world has this handled. And you guys still want to have
I'm sorry.
this process
Are we
that you
talking
would
about
like to complain
healthcare?
about.
Healthcare. Has he
yes.
shifted to healthcare regulation and law? Is that what he?
Yeah.
Yeah, generally, yes.
That we
Because
only-
AI
we
can do
only
it better
therapy
if
for
the
that,
government is
Dave.
running it.
Right.
What if the government were to run it? Then it wouldn't be all over the place, and you wouldn't be billed for things you'd never talked about.
Oh,
So
we're not gonna get to politics. We're not talking about the government running
No,
anything.
it's not politics. But look, here's what I'll say about that.
well, we
What I'll
want
say-
government to run AI here, so
Right.
that's
Well,
part of our
what I'll say
discussion
about
later.
that is that the conversation about the efficacy of a government-run health insurance, I think, changes given new technologies and artificial intelligence. I think that I think it's fair to say that we will have to have
We're talking
different
about efficiencies
conversations
all over the
Right.
place
about
here.
how
Yeah.
efficacious a government-run health insurance is with these new technologies.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
and one other thing is doctors now, they hear diagnosis, they go onto the computer and they're checking to be sure. Like, they're using the same kind of software that my dad uses as a mechanic, right? You get your car checked, he looks up the codes, he
But
figures
they
it-
know where to look. Yeah.
Right. But it's a specialized database, just like every
Right.
people have specialized databases. This actually can speed up the process. And one, it is bringing back exactly what you said, Dave. It's like, now I get actual care where someone is paying attention to me for the entire half an hour that I'm there, and not looking things up or writing things down. Or a lot of the stuff, I've been to like all of my mom's doctors for the last 3 years as her caregiver. And most of the appointment is, great, I'll put in a referral for that. Amazing, I'll put in a referral for that. So it's like, literally, we barely talk about her, and we're talking about, what she needs to do the paperwork in the meeting with her. So I do like the fact that it freed up for her to have a real conversation with you and let the AI tag all the things that she needs to put a referral for, and she could do that after.
And I'll also
I
just
just
throw
want to
in there
close
that-
by saying that I was a standardized patient for 3 or 4 years. That is, I was teaching doctors how to do good bedside manner by being a patient and having a condition. I had to have a script, and I had to learn how to memorize things. And I used to be a complaining patient or an old guy who won't do that. And they had to learn to deal with me one-on-one. And that was the kind of thing where I learned what a doctor does. And one of the exams I was doing with a doctor watching the student, in a break, I asked the doctor, so what do you do? Oh, he's in the countryside. He does old people mostly. And my mom was old. And I said, well, my mom was always told that she should do it. Yeah. And he goes, how old is she? 91? She can do whatever she feels like. And then he said, those are all my patients, he said. So I thought, yes, this guy knows what he's doing.
And if if it allows for better patient-doctor relations, that alone is worth its price in gold. If it also frees up the doctors from the excessive paper, I don't mean excessive in a derogatory way, but the piles, the mountains of paperwork that is required, then that gives them more time to see more patients, to get rid of a backlog so that, we're not sitting in waiting rooms for hours, wasting our time. I mean, this stuff I think it's all good. Brody Hefner is writing in, AI tech is a tool with potential for good that has to be used with care and subject to appropriate controls in the high stakes medical arena. Absolutely, Brody.
Yep.
Couldn't agree more.
I'm going to make a pledge at this point. I'm not going to play the Canadian card again for a long, long time. Okay?
You can play the Canadian card.
I'll worry when you hold up a maple leaf. I'll just telling you right now.
We'll have canasta afterward.
Help.
All right. Let's get to the main topic. Jobs. So before I ask any questions, I want to give credit where credit is due. As always, Nate Jones, who I credit Tamara for introducing him to us. He is a TikToker, a YouTuber. He's all over the place. None of us actually know what he does for a living, but he does this for us. And if you're interested in artificial intelligence, he is, to my estimation, one of the key people to listen to. And he, after we had decided to do this topic, came out with a multi-page, 20-something page article and guide on artificial intelligence and AI. And I just wanted to share what his sort of, one of the big ideas was that he shared. And that is that for the longest time, we thought about the value of work is the output, what we're able to do and complete. And he says that we need to change that thinking because that's what AI is really good at. AI is really good at the output. What AI isn't good at, he says, is motion. Our ability to understand, shape, and improve the motion of our work. Not what gets done, but how it moves from intention to result. So with that, let's step back. And I want to ask you, in the different, maybe we can even think about our own roles here. I mean, Bill, your work as a voice actor, I'm thinking about all the new tools that
we're worried about you, Bill.
That can
and everybody in my industry is worried about this.
Yep.
But this article, which I think was brilliant. I mean, I'm really one of part of the reasons I said I've got to go on the show tonight because that article really crystallized in ways that has only happened to me a few times in my career, the bigger overarching questions that we all have to face. And this is purely about employment. Will your skill set be relevant going forward? Now that there's so much that AI and machine learning and the rest of that can displace and is displacing incredibly quickly. And it's contemporary, it's important, and I think everybody who wants to survive going forward in an employment world has to struggle and come to grips with this. I came out of it both concerned, but also feeling more and more sure that I'm starting to get a handle on what this stuff does well and where it falls apart. And it's where it falls apart that the seams are going to be for continued employment in the future. Mm-hmm. And so it was really cool to read. I'm so thankful for your guys bringing it to my attention because I had a huge talk with my wife about this just the other day about starting to change our thinking because the old processes aren't going to work as well anymore. And, even though we're in our later careers or maybe retired or whatever, this is going to change the world very quickly. It was some really brilliant writing, and I was really happy to read it. And I kept going, yeah, Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's going to happen too. And oh, yeah, those are the kinds of things. You have this list of things that AI struggles with. I think people who don't get used to what AI struggles with and don't
Mhm.
map their skill sets towards those things are going to find themselves in a world of hurt.
Yeah. So Tony and Tamara and Lois, if I'm not mistaken, the three of you, your professions, Lois as sort of an organizer, a life organizer, coach type person for at least part of your work, I know. Tamara working in the theater, and Tony working as a pastor and a teacher. Dave's Canadian, so he doesn't count. But the three of you, is it different for you in your roles because the work that you're doing is person to person, is face to face, or are these LLMs, these new technologies, are they also creeping in to your work? Maybe I'll start with Tamara, and then we'll go to Tony and Lois, if that's okay.
So I am, because I play in television and I play in theater. The TV world is kind of where Bill is, where we're like, hey, things are, going too fast. And I specifically do animation. And so that is a no-go. We're not going to talk about it, particularly from the artist standpoint. I'm not an artist, so I kind of look at it from the, wow, this will organize my life much easier. But one of the things that has helped me in kind of reading through Nate's take and reading through other takes is it really changed my thoughts about what AI is and what it can do. So when we first talked about ChatGPT, we were talking to it like it were Google and saying, here is something I need, give me something back. And what I've started to play with is different relationships that you can have with your ChatGPT. So I've discovered three. One, it can be my assistant. I can ask it for things and it can put together what it's really great at and what has been actually changed my business as a producer immensely is I'm like, I need to make a checklist for actors to do this so that they can self-tape and I need all of these things in. And it says, sure, can I make a checklist for you? And it makes a checklist and I edit it. That is something I would give to my assistant to do, right? It is also a teacher. I was having problems with my meters. Everybody in office hours knows they struggle with this deeply and they are also generous, but no one was available. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, listen, I struggle. I have loopback, I have audio hijack, I have all these things. I don't understand what any of them do. People have set them up for me, take me from ground zero to help me. And I could go back and forth. And as an instructor, it helped me create a checklist, go back through. I could hit something and go, hey, this thing you told me to do doesn't really make sense. And let me do, helped me in that. And then the third way, which I think is the most intriguing, is that it's a collaborator. If you go into ChatGPT and you say, I have this project to do, it will say, amazing, let's do that project. It'll give you some ideas and you come back not with, here's what it did wrong or here's what you can do. And you say, here's what I did to improve upon your plan. It will not offer you back. It will offer you back, hey, that's really cool. And it will one up you to add to your collaboration. And that is really interesting. So I think those areas are going to make theater, make our lives interesting if we can get past it's taking away our jobs and it's not Google.
Can I make one friendly amendment?
Yeah.
Just say AI is an assistant, collaborator, and or teacher. Just flip teacher and collaborator because then it spells out
Yep.
the acronym ACT.
I love it. I'm going to use it. And it did. So I used it today also as customer service because I literally was helping someone tech check for this project that we're doing. And they had, an Android phone and I'm an Apple girly and we could not figure it out together. And I went to all the places and I put ChatGPT up. I'm like, hey, I'm helping someone who really doesn't know technology very well. Can you please help me with the steps so that it's easy to understand? And then I was like, oh, okay, great. I could give them all the steps for themselves.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Tony, what do you think?
Wow. This is so interesting as I reflect on my conversation last night with Liberty White, and it was about women in AI. And we talked about the future of work. And as I was thinking about our conversation, how impactful it was for me in terms of the things that we discussed and the input for from the audience in terms of the quality of questions that we got from those people that were listening. And let me say thank you, David, for your question last night. It was so kind of like, okay, the argument that I pushed in my conversation with Liberty last night was to look at AI as a tool. And the tool is so funny. My wife and I were having a conversation. I got her a retirement gift of a laptop, a Mac laptop. She's been totally Windows all of her career. So this is a learning curve. And so she really, very never really touches the MacBook. And I said to her, if you're a carpenter and you only pick up the hammer once in a while, what kind of carpenter are you going to be? And she, she zinged me right back with, well, if I'm a carpenter that uses it every day, when I ask you questions, you need to give me the right answer right away. So it was like, okay, yeah, you're right. But the point I wanted to make is that tools are to be used, and we have the opportunity to embrace the tool in such a way that it improves the quality of our work and that it allows us to become even more proficient than we would ordinarily be with the tool that we have. And I absolutely look at AI as a tool. And David, if you don't mind, I'd like to indulge you with something that is a minute and about 20 seconds, if I may. And the reason why I want to share this is because this was an AI reproduction of my conversation last night with Liberty. And it was done by Ken Jordan. It is less than 2 minutes. And so if I can do that,
Let's do it.
I want to. Okay, so
I love this so much.
Well, hello there, friends. AI Tony Mobley here with a little reminder about something special you might have missed. If you didn't catch yesterday's fascinating episode featuring the brilliant Liberty White discussing women, AI, and the future of work, I absolutely urge you to go watch the recording. The conversation was dynamic, insightful, and honestly, just the kind of dialogue we all need right now as we navigate this rapidly changing technological landscape. Head over to conversationswithtonymobley.com to catch the full episode.
Thank you, AI Tony. That conversation was truly energizing. We covered so much ground about how AI is reshaping opportunities for women in tech and beyond. From our Women in AI Futures event at Georgia Tech to practical ways anyone can start building their AI confidence, we packed a lot of value into that hour. If you're feeling uncertain about your place in this AI revolution or just curious about what's possible, I promise there's something in that episode that will spark an idea for you. As I mentioned, this isn't just about technology, it's about mindset and positioning yourself for what's next. Don't miss it.
Liberty, you brought such wonderful insights. I particularly loved our discussion about how houses of worship can ethically embrace AI tools, and your breakdown of the AI tools everyday people should actually focus on rather than getting overwhelmed. For anyone watching who feels like AI is for someone else, this conversation will change your perspective. See you all at our next episode.
Absolutely. And remember, the future is being built right now. Let's build it together.
So I want to say first, Ken Jordan is brilliant. This was last night. He generated it sometime. He's in Ireland. He had to get the show and then do the edit of all of this. And this is what I'm talking about when I say it's a tool. It can be a tool. Now, the argument can be raised, well, all of this is putting somebody out of work. And I would say possibly, but I think one of the things that we gleaned from our conversation last night was that it's about, and I think we will get to it, a part of this conversation is that there is an opportunity to reset for all of us, to get familiar with the tools that are now available to us. And even an old guy can have an opportunity to be retrained. And so that's kind of the way that I want to look at this. I can go on and on and on. I got a lot of stuff when it comes to this in terms of church and education and that. But essentially, I look at it as a tool, and it's a tool to all of innovation. If you look at it, is a tool in order to help us get better and better and better and better. And so that's what I have to say about
One of the things I'm going to bring up later, I'm going to come to you first, Lois and Dave. A question for later maybe is this different than other moments in history, moments of shift in history? Is this just like Joe Kelly says when the web was going to replace education, or is this different? And I'm not sure I know the answer to that. But before we do that, Lois, in your work, do you worry about AI coming into the interpersonal work that you do?
So let's begin with the fact that I am now 75. I retired 10 years ago. I had my own company called The Organizer since 1980. And I don't, I, I'm not worried about it because I don't have a job that's at risk at this point. But what I wanted to say is that every time some new technology comes around, you get to choose what to do with it. So when I first started, there weren't computers on everybody's desk. I know that that's unknowable for most young people, but there weren't. And so I was doing things with people, how to keep the papers from taking over your life, how to organize and structure your filing system, how to do, and it was all paper stuff, it was all physical stuff. And then when computers became more common, then people were asking me questions about how do you organize the computer? Okay, so we worked on that. What I want to say is that just because there's something new doesn't mean it's going to put somebody out of work. I look at what Tony created and what he just showed us. There is no way that anybody would have thought of doing that because it wasn't possible and it wasn't something that seemed reasonable. Unless you were a millionaire, you wouldn't have the monies and the resources to allow yourself to get this neat thing. But now we have the capabilities. We have a friend who does that. It only took a minute, half a day, whatever. So it is going to affect a lot of people, but not necessarily in the way you think it's going to. So anyway, as far as AI goes, I'm happy that Tamara's doing all those stuff. I'm probably not going to do it because I'm probably going to go and find a cat to pet instead.
Dave, in your world, now you come from the world of TV, but
Yeah.
where do you see the rise of AI and the jobs that you've seen in your career?
Well, it started when they had robot-controlled cameras in the studio during the newscast, which were all pre-programmed for the different positions they take during the newscast, and the cameramen lost their jobs. The second round was when a network director in Toronto could do all of the newscasts across Canada in every province, and he only had to do it by remote control because they already had the satellite connections and everything. And this sort of freaked people out. But all of my colleagues transitioned, and they got to doing it on their own or being freelancers or collaborating on projects themselves and reorganizing themselves around the work they felt like doing and the creative work they wanted to do. And they found a way to, have clients and do things for people that they weren't able to do if they stayed in broadcast. They could only do news or commercials or daily shows and that sort of stuff. I was also inspired by Tony's reference to this as a tool, because he reminded me that my out of job choice is always being that in Canada, I've always got this to rely on to keep myself warm and healthy and a roof over my head. This is the tool I need that's ancient and still helps when I feel like I'm never going to work again. I can always be a lumberjack.
Lumberjack starter kit.
Love
This
it.
is really fascinating to me.
Can I say, I love that he had an axe
Ready.
at the ready.
Of course.
At the ready.
At the ready.
I have more than one.
Bill, before you jump in, I just want to very quickly say that Brody Hefner just expanded Tamra on assistant, collaborator, teacher. He says, assistant, collaborator, teacher, integrator, organizer, nudge. AI is action.
I love it.
That's pretty cool, Brody.
That's amazing.
Sorry, Bill, go ahead.
No. So for me, after going through Nate's Substack and the rest of that, I came down to one fundamental question for me personally for the next era, which is, what can I do that AI can't? I'm no longer going to be thrilled and excited and goggled at what it can do, because it can do a ton of things, and it's surprising us and it's amazing us, and we're getting really nervous and all the rest of that about it taking away all the work. It's a lot of fireworks. So the question is, don't look at what it can do.
Right.
Figure out what it can't do, and can you find a seam there? And in the list that you put along with what it does not do well, there's a mine of interesting ideas right there. Tony, I love that promo, but I got to tell you, as somebody who's been doing and listening to recorded audio forever, it was slick, it was fine. To me, it's just a tiny bit juiceless. And the reason I say that is because I've been announcing it. I've been having people on the other side of the glass tell me just nice, even announcement. And we used to do that. And at some point they go, well, now it's boring. Can you make it more interesting? Can you put some of yourself into this?
Right.
Can you stop being an announcer and be somebody I care about? Over and over again in the last 20 years, I hear that through the glass as we're starting recording sessions. I don't want an announcer. I want a person.
Right.
And that means uniqueness.
That's fascinating.
Not generative.
Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right. It was 100% AI generated voices.
The voices too, or you?
The voices were
100%,
100%,
script choice.
100% AI generated. And
wow.
One of the things that Liberty and I talked
sounds
about
like
was the
the
fact
two
that
of you, though.
it sounded like us.
It does.
It sounded like
they're
us.
faking the voices great, but it still sounded academic to me. The language was not, we're not hearing a Robin Williams with a unique voice saying some of the same things other people have, but in such a fascinating way that you can't take your ears and eyes off of it.
I know. I'm just saying, I didn't know it was fake. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Tony.
Yes.
One
Yes, it
thing
was.
I was thinking about as we've been talking about this is that we are at a time in our world. Let's pull AI aside for a second. We are at a time in our world where work is changing. Corporations are not investing in people. There's not money for things. So people are being laid off in record numbers. Just, you'll get a job and you'll be out of work. You'll be out of work for, people in my industry are out of work for 2 and 3 years at a time. So the whole world of work is changing. And I think AI is hitting at a time when we can use it as a blame for the fact that it's destroying jobs. Those jobs have been on a 20-year slide down. And so some of those jobs are not going to come back, and it's not AI's fault. But so in a way, AI is an opportunity for us to be looking at what is the next step? Like, what are the things that you're going to be doing next? I know even for me, I would have thought at this point in my career, I'd be like, okay, I know exactly where I'm going towards retirement. And I'm thinking, like, what is it that I do next? How am I going to survive and feed myself and feed my family? So I do think that when we look at how the nature of work is changing, then I think that that AI offers us an opportunity to say there are new jobs that no one knows how to do. And, I'm finding I'm picking up jobs that the kids don't want to learn. And I'm like, all right, I'll learn something new. And as much as I have a group of really talented, smart, young people in my organization, I cannot get them to come and play and learn it. And so, you know what? I'm going to be the one who knows how to do it. They're not. But work is changing. It is not the same as it has been. If you are graduating now, it just the job market is not what your parents' job market was. It's not even what it was 5 years ago. So I think that it can be an opportunity, but it goes hand in hand with how the nature of work in general, regardless of AI, is shifting and changing.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I noticed after I retired and stopped being the organizer is that now I can find, because I'm good at searching for things, I can find instructions to do almost anything. And it isn't AI, it's just YouTube. It's just people are sharing their expertise in a public way. And I don't have to have them living here, 5-10 miles away from me. They can be all the way across the country. I can still listen to them. I can still hear them. And so if I were starting out today, I could still run a business as the organizer, but it would be a different business because some of the basics could be outsourced to YouTube. I could say to a client, well, in this area, you have this problem, and just go listen to Nat's thing or whatever. And so the thing that can't be given away or outsourced or made up on YouTube is the interaction with me and my client. And so if you don't know how organization works, first thing I had to do when I got a new client is in the first 15 minutes, I have to figure out how they think. How do they organize, structure, whatever? And is it just one person, or is it a whole family, or is it a business? So that part, that figuring out how people work, is something that has to happen with a person. I don't think an AI could do that. I don't think they're perceptive enough to do that. And then once you figured out how they think, then you can structure the processes to answer their question. So I think people will still be around forever.
David, if I could just piggyback on what Lois said from the standpoint of what Bill said as well in terms of the AI. The conversation that I had last night with Liberty, if the AIs were having that same conversation, it wouldn't be as powerful.
Absolutely.
And so that's the other piece that we have to be, like Bill said, it was slick and, it's awesome. And Ken Jordan is brilliant to be able to do it. Mm-hmm. But the idea that Liberty and I, even though we're not in the same place, can have a genuine interaction. It is intentional.
Two people discovering, yeah.
And there is the for lack of a better word, juice, Bill, that is
Amen.
That is going back and forth between us. And so there is always going to be there is always going to be the space for that. I think.
Yeah.
And
no matter how good AI gets.
This show is the proof.
Right.
Yes.
There's always going to be a space for that.
Mm-hmm. I was going to mention that the brain is wired, all our brains are wired for seeing unconnected events and contemplating them and then finding a pattern or a relationship between these seemingly unrelated things. And it's how we discover everything from how to catch a rabbit all the way up to how to build a tall building. And we just discover things like concrete has the same coefficient of expansion as steel, iron rather. And if you use any other metal, it doesn't work. Iron is the only metal that will work at the same rate as concrete, and that way we can build bridges and tall buildings, because the warming sun and the cooling evening, they all work together and the building doesn't crack apart. we discovered this by just observing different things and then saying, what if these two were, what if pudding and whipped cream went together? So we don't, the AI is never going to put those two things together. They're just not.
So I will never eat a great jelly and mayonnaise sandwich ever. It just doesn't work. I don't care how you try.
I think with any tool, its value is how it makes you stronger. So, your axe is helpful to you not because it's an axe, but because it improves your ability to chop wood. And I think that as we look at new technologies, it's not just if one doesn't serve you because it doesn't make you stronger, then that's not the best use of that tool for you.
So let me pick up on that for a second, because one of the things that Nate does in it really everywhere, but even in this article, is, and I'll just give you one example here. So this is he's looking at let's see, the one that I picked here is hold on, meta reflection. Right? He's saying this is an area of motion. And he talks about what it is and where it shows up, what's made it hard before, what AI actually helps with, and then he gives you a chart of before and after. So before AI, what did this look like, and then after AI. But if you look at the after AI, for each example he gives, he tells you what tool to use: GPT 4.0, GPT 4.5, O3 mini high, Gemini 2.5. And this is something he does a lot, that he recognizes that AI is not one thing. It's a toolbox of lots of different things that all have different strengths. And I will admit that every once in a while, today, twice, I actually went back to AI Studio in Google. I really, really want to love Gemini and AI Studio, and it just never works for me. Never. I've never had a good experience with it. I'm sure that there are times when that is absolutely the right tool to use, but knowing how to decide which of these is the right tool for the job that you have at hand, that in and of itself is a skill that I will readily admit I don't have yet. I rely on OpenAI and what other people tell me. Yeah, Lois and Tamara, please.
So this reminds me a little bit of when the web was new back in the 90s, and we had search engines. And you would go and you'd look in this database and you'd look for something, but it might not have been there, but it might be in this database and it might be in this database. And there were all these different places that you could look. But then there became a company that came out and said, well, you put your search in once, we'll check all those databases and give you back a combined response. And that sounds like what we need here is a place where you can put in your question or whatever it is, and your tool will go out and search all these different other tools and come back and give you what you want.
So for what it's worth, O3 is the first, probably best example of it. So O3 just came out this week from OpenAI, and there are a couple things. First of all, it has access to what do they call it? Not tasks, to apps or tools. Sorry, it has access to tools. So for example, you can it will search the web for you. You don't have to tell it, I want this to be a web search. It's multimodal, so it can take in different types of input. You don't have to choose a different model for that. It will do deep research without you asking it to do deep research. So in some ways, we're now getting to a point, Lois, where I tend to be a little wary about the tools that people build that kind of have their toes in all the different, 'cause I'm not sure that any of them do it really well. But this new models that we're starting to see now may be the beginning of exactly what you're talking about, where we don't have to do all that legwork.
Let me push weirdly at this, David, for just a second. What if search is like music? What if instead of a thing, it has all these different factors? I mean, a march a simple march, 4/4 time, no variation, is as far away from bebop as you can imagine. They're both satisfying. They both solve fundamental emotional problems for people. They make you feel great, but they're very different. And I'm starting to see all this need to try to figure out all these search engine modalities and GPT things as a little bit like, where's your musical life going to live? Are you going to be a rock and roll person? Are you going to be a jazz person? Are you going to be a classical person?
So are you saying we have to choose one?
No, I'm saying why? I like disco and I like jazz. I can enjoy both. I can't be an expert probably in both, but I can certainly dip my toe in as many as I need to be happy. If I want to listen to a string quartet tomorrow, there's no rule to say you shouldn't do that.
No,
I should
agree with
know
that.
how it fits in my life. I should know that if I'm trying to get work done, a march or disco, something rhythmic, might be the right tool to use for me. And I should know that that exists.
But that's all I was trying to say, is that part of our work is having to learn what's the right tool for the right.
You got a new language, the language of music, and there's so much to explore.
Yeah.
And no one can tell you what you're going to like. Excuse me. I'll stop there.
Two things
Can I
quickly.
just add real quickly?
Hold on, honey, hold on one second. I got to get Tamara.
The prompt too.
Hold on. Got to get Tamara. Go ahead.
Two things really quickly. One thing about Google, when we think about Google, how it changed everything for us, is that it allowed regular people to search. It did not do away with people who are experts at research. Being a scholar and a researcher is still a thing, and it takes and they're not just going to Google and stopping there. They're going to Google and to all of the databases, and they are not using Google to stop searching. And they know that this scholarly work is going to be in this database, and they're still doing that work. So it didn't change that for everybody. And one of the things that I think is interesting, because Lois is exactly right. We had kind of categories of things, and then they were in separate databases, and then there was Google that went to all of the things. And one of the things that fascinated me about Nate's points in the work that we looked at this week is that it isn't linear. ChatGPT 1, 2, 3. It's not like, oh, this one is better than the last one. It is really, this one does this piece better, and this one does this piece better. And you may go back to do this particular task. And that's where, like, Bill's music analogy is so great, because it is about kind of knowing what's out there and what can do things better for the task, but it's not going to replace 100% people who are specialists in their area. It's going to enhance their work.
Agreed.
At the risk of adding to the pile, when I first heard that Apple had intelligence, I thought this was the approach they were going to take, is that you'll have a tool on your system which reaches out to all those other systems as they become popular or become established. And that when people know they're looking for or wanting to try or need project management help, they get it right away. They don't have to worry about where it came from. And unfortunately, AI, or Apple intelligence in its own way, is not coming out in the same mode. Everybody's criticizing it, but I still have a feeling that's where they're going. They're not trying to embed intelligence so much beyond being a computer agent, but they're giving us that new search engine that searches all AI.
Yeah. And Brody is pointing out on YouTube that some AI models like Perplexity already tap multiple AI tools depending on the nature of your queries. So yeah, that's a big piece of it. Thank you. Tony, let me give you the last word and then we'll wrap up.
No, I just wanted to say in response to Bill's question or statement about music and the variations on it, also the consideration is always the prompt. If you are able to really put together a great prompt, you can get some amazing things out of AI.
Yeah, agreed. And actually, you just hold on, let me bring it up. Since we've been quoting him here so much, let me give him a I'm trying to
Give him a boost.
Yeah, that's what I want to do, but I want to find his here it is. So this is Nate Jones's website. It's natebjones.com. But the reason I'm bringing it here is because one of the things you can get from him is all of his AI prompts. You can actually purchase his prompts for $100. You get 50 pages of prompts that he is constantly updating. I have
$2 a page.
I have no idea what they are, but they run the gamut from product to engineering to professional development to social posts for marketers, even prompts for email. So yes, prompting is, junk in, junk out. If you put good stuff in, you'll get good stuff out. If you want to support his work, that's you could certainly go there. So here's the good news. I think the good news is that despite the fact that there is Notebook LM from Google, and since then other tools that can create their own podcasts, we did it anyway. We didn't even need those. So we're not out of a job over here.
And they wouldn't have put an axe in mine.
And you know what?
He did not bring an axe.
For that alone, this was worth it.
They might use an axiom, but never an axe.
Oh, God.
Couldn't resist. Sorry.
We've gone awry.
Well done. Very well
There
done.
we go.
Wait, can I
Morning
say,
man.
wait, I
Old
want to say
morning
one,
man.
I want to
Yes.
say one other thing
Go ahead.
about why this matters. And I was thinking about this with you, Tony, specifically, actually, and actually with you also, Lois. I would like to think that what we do here, what we give people, has some value. Mm-hmm. But I'm not so bold. Well, let me just say this. I think that a large reason why people show up and watch shows like this, or watch the Twit Network, or watch Office Hours, is not so much because of the value they get out of it, but because of the people that they feel a connection with. Yeah. And so, I feel connected to Tony. That's why I tuned in last night. I love Liberty, but I didn't know she was going to be on. I didn't, I didn't go to that thinking, oh, I'm going to get some great insights. I went because I love Tony and I wanted to see his show. And I watch, when I get my emails in the morning and I see that Bill is going to be hosting or reading, I like listening to Bill. He's like a friend of mine. And so I just think that that's another core piece of this whole puzzle is relationship. That AI can do lots of things that I can do, but it can't be a friend like I can be. And it can't be a friend like anybody else can be. And so that's something that sticks out to me. That's never going to pay the bills. So it's not a job, but it's worth something. So in any case, I'm really grateful for all of my friends here, for all of you who are watching. You are always welcome to join us, to ask questions, to give insights. Join us in our Discord. It's all available at therundown.show. And, if you're celebrating, I want to wish each and every one of you a wonderful end to Passover and a fantastic and meaningful Easter this coming Sunday. And we will see you all next week on another episode of The Rundown. Bye, everyone.